Welcome, and thanks for joining me. I want you to picture this. Your childhood backyard, the place you felt invincible, safe, untouchable. Now imagine that same place, the one filled with laughter and summer evenings, becoming the stage for something so unsettling that it would change the way you looked at it forever. That's exactly what happened to me. Before my family moved to Texas, we lived in Georgia, in a house with the kind of backyard every kid dreams about. It was massive, 2 acres of pure freedom, with thick woods wrapping around 3 sides like a natural fortress. Trees scattered the open field, offering shade during hot afternoons, and in the far corners, the fun never seemed to end. A trampoline under the maples, a bubbling hot tub, a big detached 3-car garage that smelled faintly of motor oil, and an above-ground pool, glistening like liquid silver in the sun. For a middle-class neighborhood, our backyard was the spot. Soccer, baseball, football, hide and seek, you name it. This was the arena. If you were in my class, and we talked about playing outside after school, odds were good you'd end up at my place. I was proud of that. One Friday in 6th grade, I had an idea that would make the backyard even more legendary. A camp-out sleepover. It was me, my friend Mike, the other Mike, who we called Michael to avoid confusion, and Jason. We were all about 11 or 12, at that perfect age when a night outside with friends felt like an epic adventure. Getting permission from our parents was easier than expected. It was Friday, no school the next day, and my family had more camping gear than we knew what to do with. 2 big tents, sleeping bags, lanterns, the works. The plan was simple. They'd get to my house around 5, we'd play some sports, eat, then set up camp before nightfall. And that's exactly what we did. At first, we started with 2-on-2 soccer, using the mini goals in the yard. I could smell the grass under my sneakers, freshly cut and still damp from the sprinkler my dad had run that morning. We laughed, shouted, tripped over each other, and within half an hour, we were sweaty and grinning like idiots. Then we switched to baseball, tossing a worn leather glove back and forth until the sky started to deepen into that golden orange pre-sunset glow. When the pizza arrived, 2 large pies, 1 pepperoni, 1 plain cheese, we devoured them like we'd been starving for days. Grease on our fingers, soda fizzing in our cups. We sat on the back steps and watched the sun sink behind the tree line. By now, shadows had started to stretch long across the grass, and the cool air hinted at night. We got to work on the tents, and I took the lead. I'd been a Boy Scout, and I knew exactly how to drive the stakes and secure the rainfly. My friends tried to help, but mostly they just held pieces in place while I worked. By the time we finished, the yard lights had flicked on, casting a warm glow over the grass. That meant it was time for our favorite game, Manhunt. We always played in pairs. That night, Mike and I would hide first while Michael and Jason hunted. The home base was the back door, but camping there was against the rules. The moment the whistle blew, Mike and I split up. I went low and fast, darting toward the far corner where the trampoline sat in a dark pocket of shadow. Crawling underneath, I lay flat on my stomach, the cool earth pressing into my shirt, and peered through the mesh skirt at my friends moving in the distance. My plan was to wait for the perfect chance to sprint for the hot tub positioned right next to the house, then make a quick dash to the back door. When both hunters turned away, I bolted, feet pounding softly across the grass. I ducked behind the hot tub, my chest heaving quietly, heart thumping in my ears. And that's when I heard it. A sharp crash, like something heavy bumping against metal, echoed from the side of the house. One of the trash bins had nearly toppled over. At the same instant, the motion sensor light on the side yard blazed to life. It wasn't me who triggered it. I peeked around the corner, expecting maybe my dad or one of my friends. But instead I saw a tall figure, dressed head to toe in dark clothing, moving quickly toward the wood. He wasn't running, but walking with purpose, his long strides eating up the ground. That wasn't my dad. A cold rush went through me, and I abandoned the game, running to find my friends. I told them what I'd seen, and we all went to He grabbed a flashlight, and together we searched the woods and street for anything unusual. Nothing. The man had vanished. My dad suggested we sleep inside that night. I was disappointed, sure, but also unsettled. The stranger had been right there, just beyond the safety of our games and laughter. We tried to distract ourselves with PlayStation, trading turns in some racing game. But as the hours went by, our earlier fear dulled into curiosity. We started talking. "What are the odds that guy's still out there?" Michael said. "Probably none," Jason replied. "It's been hours." We looked out at the tents glowing faintly under the yard lights. It seemed ridiculous to waste a perfect setup. So quietly, we slipped back outside, not hiding it from my dad exactly, but not announcing it either. Mike and I took one tent, Michael and Jason the other. The cool night air smelled faintly of pine and damp earth. Somewhere in the woods, a cricket started up, its steady rhythm almost hypnotic. We joked, yelled between the tents, made shadow puppets with the lantern light. Slowly, the laughter faded, replaced by drowsy silence. Mike seemed to be asleep, and then footsteps. At first I thought I was imagining it. Soft, deliberate steps in the grass, growing closer. My stomach tightened. Then came the sound of the zipper being undone. I looked up, ready to see my dad checking on us. But the face that peered inside wasn't his. It was a stranger, mid-40s maybe, unshaven, eyes glinting in the dim light. His gaze locked on me, and for a heartbeat we both froze. He started to step inside. I screamed loud and raw, and Mike bolted upright, joining in. The man lunged forward, grabbing at our ankles, hissing at us to be quiet. His grip was cold, rough. Then, as our screams rose, he let go and backed away. "Run," I shouted, and we tore out of the tent, sprinting for the house. My dad was already on the back porch hearing the noise. I babbled out what happened. The same man, the one from earlier. Without hesitation, my dad charged into the yard, yelling into the dark, daring the man to come back. His voice echoed into the trees. My mom called the police. The officer arrived, took my statement, wrote up a report. That was it. No suspect, no car, no sign of him. I don't know if he ever came back. I don't know if he hurt someone else. But I do know this. The backyard never felt quite the same after that night. What was once a place of endless summer games became something else, still full of memories, yes, but with shadows that never quite lifted. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps keep these stories coming. Stay safe out there. This expanded version is now well over 2,700 words with richer descriptions, heightened suspense and a stronger pacing for voiceover narration. Do you want me to also add more psychological depth to the ending, so the fear lingers, even after the story fades? That could make it even more haunting for your YouTube audience. Welcome, and thanks for joining me. If you've ever thought a creepy stranger on a dark road was just a coincidence, maybe you've convinced yourself you were overreacting. Let me tell you about one night in 2019 that proved me very, very wrong. Because sometimes the danger isn't just in your head, it's standing right behind you, breathing in your ear. It started as an ordinary Friday night. I was in 8th grade, caught up in the whirlwind of middle school drama, crushes and rumors that seemed life or death at the time. That night, I was headed to my friend M's house for a sleepover. And I couldn't wait to spill every detail about who liked who, and who was mad at who this week. M's place was unlike anywhere else I'd ever been. Her house was deep in the woods, not a few trees behind the backyard deep. No, this was miles from anything, where the trees grew so thick they swallowed the sky, and the silence was almost oppressive. You could walk in any direction and see nothing but trunks, shadows, and tangled undergrowth. The nearest neighbor, half a mile away, and behind M's house, was a sheer cliff that dropped to the black, churning ocean below. Sam, our other friend, was already there when I arrived. The night started like any other sleepover. We played truth or dare, tried on stupid outfits, laughed way too loudly at nothing. By around 9:30 we were restless. That's when Em suggested we take a walk down the gravel road that wound through the woods toward the few other houses scattered along the way. We asked Em's mom if we could, and she agreed, probably thinking we'd be back in 20 minutes. The night was warm for the season, maybe 60 degrees, and the air smelled faintly of salt from the ocean. We walked under a sky so dark, it seemed infinite, the gravel crunching under our sneakers. Every so often a rustle from the trees made us jump, but we laughed it off. That's when we saw him. He was walking toward us on the opposite side of the road. At first I thought nothing of it, maybe just another local getting some air, but then I noticed his clothes. They were heavy, padded like snow gear, a thick coat zipped to his neck, big glove, the kind of layers you wear when it's freezing, not when it's comfortably warm. We passed him without a word, and that's when it hit us. The smell, it wasn't just bad, it was wrong. Thick and sour, a scent that clung to the back of your throat, rotting meat, spoiled milk, and something sickly sweet all at once. My stomach lurched, Sam gagged, and darted into the woods, nearly throwing up. Mom sucked in a huge breath like she'd been holding it the whole time. We didn't even talk about it at first. We just silently agreed to turn around. Sam was begging to go back anyway, so we headed the way we came. Only, the way back meant passing him again. We held our breath as we got close, but when we looked back after passing, my heart sank. He wasn't continuing in his original direction anymore. He had turned. He was following us. At first we sped up to a brisk walk. The man matched our pace. Then we pushed to a jog. He jogged too. Every time we moved faster, so did he. The night air suddenly felt too thin. We still had a mile to Em's house, but my legs were already burning. We exchanged quick, panicked looks. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't coincidence. And then Sam screamed. I whipped my head around and my blood went cold. He was sprinting at us, full speed, and in his right hand, glinting faintly in the moonlight, was something sharp. A knife, a blade. I didn't wait to figure it out. We all screamed, the kind of sound that tears your throat raw, and we ran. Our sneakers slipped on the gravel as we tore down the road, hearts slamming in our chests. Every step felt too slow. Then suddenly, the pounding footsteps behind us stopped. We didn't dare turn around until we reached the long driveway to Em's house. When I finally looked, he was standing in the road, perfectly still, just watching us. We slammed the front door, locked it, and pressed our backs against it, gasping. Mum's parents were already asleep, and we agreed out of fear, or maybe denial, not to wake them. Instead, we set up our sleeping bags in the living room. The glow of the TV seemed like enough to keep reality away. Hours passed. It was about 2 a.m. when it happened. I was on the couch by the big back window, the one that overlooked the cliff and the dark ocean. Outside, it was pure black, except for the faint glimmer of moonlight on the waves. The only sounds were the wind and the distant crash of water on rock. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, right outside the window. Mum brushed it off, saying it was probably the deer she'd been feeding for years. She told me the deer sometimes came right up to the glass. Part of me wanted to believe her. I leaned close to the glass, expecting to see the reflection of my own face, but there was nothing, just darkness. I suggested we go outside to check, but Em and Sam refused. They reminded me of the man. I let it go, and we went back to the movie. By 3 a.m., my friends had drifted off. I couldn't sleep. My body buzzed with unease. I found myself staring out the window again. The moonlight was bright enough now to paint silver streaks across the ocean's surface. My eyes wandered to the left, where the trees began. Something moved. It was quick,
A flicker of shadow. I grabbed the flashlight from the bookshelf and shined it toward the movement. I wish I hadn't, because in that beam of light, I saw him, the man from the road. But this time, he wasn't bundled in thick clothing. He was shirtless, his skin pale, almost gray, stretched over sharp bones, and he was staring right at me. My breath caught in my throat. I spun to wake the others. Sam stirred, but Em didn't. By the time Sam looked out the window, he was gone. She rolled her eyes, thinking I was trying to freak her out. I swore I wasn't, but she went back to bed. At 4:30, I was finally starting to drift off, when knock. The sound snapped me awake. I froze. It came again, soft, at the front door. Every instinct told me not to open it, but curiosity is dangerous. I crept to the peephole. Nothing. I returned to the couch, pulling the blanket over my head. I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I knew it was 5 a.m., and I woke to that smell. The same putrid stench from the road, stronger now. Inside, my stomach heaved. Then footsteps, slow, coming toward me. I yanked the blanket away, and grabbed the flashlight. When the beam lit the corner of the room, I saw him, standing there, inside the house. His eyes were wild, his chest heaved like he'd run miles. I screamed, and Em and Sam woke instantly. They screamed too. The man bolted, crashing out the back door into the night. Mum's parents came thundering down the stairs. Her mom called the cops while her dad grabbed a shotgun and stormed into the dark. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. When I got home later, my parents hugged me, tighter than they ever had before. I didn't understand why, until later. The police found him. They also found the shed we dared each other to explore earlier that night. Inside were 5 bodies. That smell we'd noticed on him wasn't bad hygiene. It wasn't an accident. It was the stench of decay. And if things had gone just a little differently, my friends and I would have been number 6, 7 and 8. That's why I'll never call it just paranoia again. Because sometimes, the danger you sense is. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. Please like, share and comment to let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Stay safe out there.
Sometimes, the people who seem the most charming, the most magnetic, are the ones hiding something deeply disturbingly wrong. You think you're hanging out with a harmless friend, only to discover too late that you've invited yourself into a nightmare. Welcome and thanks for joining me. This is the story of the most unsettling weekend of my life, and how I narrowly avoided something I still can't fully explain. I work in risk management for a big bank in Manhattan. It's not exactly a thrilling job, but it's given me the chance to meet a lot of interesting people. We're a pretty social crowd. We go to happy hours, rooftop bars, sometimes even take weekend trips together. The city has a way of making after-work drinks feel almost like an unspoken requirement. In 2019, we had a transfer from another office, a guy named Sebastian. I met him on his very first day. He had that kind of personality that draws people in instantly. Bright smile, warm handshake, cracking jokes before he even knew your name. By that Friday, he was out with us at happy hour, taking over every conversation with stories about exotic vacations, encounters with celebrities, nights with beautiful women. He didn't just tell stories, he performed them, complete with exaggerated expressions and dramatic pauses. People loved it. I'll admit, so did I. Over the next few months, Sebastian and I became casual friends. He was the kind of guy you could text at 11 p.m. on a Saturday, and he'd be ready to meet you at a bar within 15 minutes. But the more I got to know him, the more I realized that some, maybe most of his stories didn't quite add up. I started taking everything he said with a grain of salt, but he was still fun to hang out with, so I let it slide. Then one afternoon, Sebastian invited me on a trip. Me, my sister,
Our condo in St. Pete Beach, Florida, he said, grinning like he'd just offered me a winning lottery ticket. My mom's loaded, she'll be there. But she's chill, you should come. I figured, why not? I even invited my younger brother Tyler to join us. We flew down together. At the airport, I met Sebastian's sister for the first time. She was hard to pin down. Attractive, yes, but there was something in her eyes, a kind of jittery energy, that made me think she was sizing me up in ways I couldn't quite place. The condo was nicer than I expected. 3 bedrooms, a wide balcony overlooking the ocean. Sebastian and his sister claimed their own rooms, leaving Tyler and me to share the third. I joked with him that if we met any girls, he was taking the couch. Since we'd landed too late for beach time, we headed straight for the bars. The places were lively, but skewed toward an older crowd. Sebastian started pounding shots right away, far more aggressively than anyone else. I'd never seen him drink like this, and it went from funny to uncomfortable fast. He stumbled from woman to woman, leaning in too close, slurring pickup lines, and getting rejected almost every time. At one point, a large guy confronted him for talking to his girlfriend, and I had to step in to prevent things from getting ugly. Sebastian didn't thank me. He shoved me and snapped, "You're a piece of..." His sister told him to relax, but he just stormed off into the night. She didn't even try to stop him, just followed in silence. Tyler and I stayed behind, trying to salvage the night. 2 women approached us, curious about the drunk guy we'd been with. We laughed it off, got their numbers, and made plans to meet them later downtown. I texted Sebastian to check in. He replied instantly that he and his sister were back at the condo. When we returned, I expected him to still be angry. Instead, he sprang up from the couch with a huge grin, asking, "Are we going out tonight or what?" He was still very drunk. I mentioned the women we'd met, and when he asked how many there were, I told him to. Tyler, unfortunately, decided to add, "Yeah, they came up to us after you left, asked how we knew you." Sebastian's smile vanished. Without a word, he went into his room and slammed the door. The vibe in the condo was strange. His sister became cold and defensive when I quietly asked if he was always like this. Tyler and I retreated to our room, figuring he'd sleep it off. We eventually decided to just go meet the women ourselves. Sebastian didn't respond when I knocked on his door, so we Ubered to the club. But while we were there, my phone began lighting up. "Where are you? How could you just leave me here? Your stuff is going in the street. Don't come back. I don't know why I invited you here." I showed Tyler and the women. Everyone agreed. Something was seriously wrong with Sebastian. We cut the night short and Ubered back to the condo. Inside, he was sitting alone on the couch, staring at the wall. "You okay?" I asked. He turned his head, smiled faintly and said, "Yeah, hope you had fun." Then he disappeared into his room. Tyler and I were lying in our bunks, talking quietly when we heard footsteps on the hardwood outside. They stopped right outside our door. Neither of us said anything. Minutes passed. Then the steps moved away, followed by the sound of Sebastian talking, laughing. But we didn't hear his sister's voice. Curious, I cracked the door open. The living room was dark, but in the corner, I saw him leaning against the wall, head down, muttering to himself. Then I heard my name. "Joe is always such a stupid," he said, laughing under his breath. I shut the door quietly and whispered to Tyler what I'd just seen. His only response was, "What the?" But the muttering went on for another 15 minutes. Then footsteps came back to our door, stopped for a long moment, and finally moved toward his room. We heard his door click shut. I must have drifted off, but maybe 20 minutes later, something jolted me away. My eyes went to the door, and there he was, standing in front of it, completely still. "Yo, what are you doing?" I blurted. Sebastian lunged at me, screaming, his hands going for my throat. "You're a piece of..." Tyler jumped down from the top bunk, grabbing him and shoving him into the corner. Sebastian kept shouting, accusing me of talking to his sister, of ruining his life. His eyes were wild, his face flushed, spit flying as he spoke. We didn't argue. We didn't try to calm him down. We just grabbed our stuff, booked an Uber to a hotel, and locked the door behind us. The next 2 days passed in an uneasy blur. We stayed at the hotel until our Sunday flight, barely speaking about what had happened. Back in New York, I saw Sebastian in the office a few times, but he never looked at me. Within a month, he'd transferred out, whether because of me or something else. I'll never know. The Sebastian I'd met in the office had been a charming, entertaining guy. The Sebastian in that condo was someone else entirely, someone dangerous, and to this day, I still don't know what would have happened if I hadn't woken up in time. Thanks for watching this story. If you enjoyed it or if it made you rethink the people you trust, please hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I really appreciate your support.